So I brought some materials for you to take home with you, so you'll each get a little folder like this with materials that will help you kind of reflect on what might you do. But I just wanted to give you some context for how this is not it's something that you could just pick up and run with. It's really a reflective practice. And 17 years ago, when I first started teaching, I had the beauty of working with some professionals that were outstanding and who had already built in some structures for buddy reading in our school. And that's how I started trying to use cross-age tutoring in elementary school. I've used it effectively as a classroom teacher and as a literacy coach. Most recently, when I was a literacy coach, I coordinated groups of pre-K to 5th grade cross-age tutorings. However, it wasn't whole school. It was the few teachers that I could get buy-in with, but it worked beautifully. I just wanted to let you know that it's not something that you could just go home and say, oh, I'm going to do this. But nothing has worked as well as when you have a team that wants to do this for improving literacy skills for all students. And as much as we'd like to think that only the students who are already empowered benefit from it, I believe that the deeper that you are about how you prepare and what you do with each lesson and each activity, the more that you enrich all of the participants. So the first thing I want to reiterate is to go slow and to not expect big results. And even though we must think it's a standards-based, it's a really test-rich environment, the opportunities for students to teach each other, regardless of how small, is an empowering experience. So we built relationships first before we dig into literacy. So one of the plans is to make sure that we know each other, and teachers are very much observing how students are interacting and taking anecdotal notes and identifying who's a good fit, and realizing that not everyone is there all the time, so you have to make conditions so that all students learn. So sometimes you'll have triads, sometimes you'll just have a dyad working together. But having the stage, setting up the stage with organized materials and a real basic premise is, I want you to enjoy this session. And it could be as little as 10 minutes or it could be as long as 30 minutes. But every minute is going to be enriching because we've planned it out together. And that's not easy to attain. However, I will say that Caring Schools Communities has a wonderful book with already activities in it. And one of the activities is in your packet. These are lessons that are already set up for you to dig into and realize that if you set up that structure consistently, you already have a very solid system of how to go forward with it. Secondly, it's not just literacy, it is math, it is science, and it is social studies. So they have example lessons. So once you dig in and really do these, you'll realize how to extend those to other contexts. So I really highly, highly invite you to dig into these kits and start reading through them, because they're in our classrooms and not enough teachers are looking into them. Partly because we're not realizing the value of how effective and how, if we start small and consistently even do it once a week, and if that's too much, twice a month, but really dig in and practice that process, I do believe that it's going to take you a lot further than you can imagine. So part of the systems in place that you're going to have to plan out are how students talk to each other. So we have sentence frames, we have very basic classroom rules, and not necessarily etiquette, but how we want to be heard and how we want others to hear us is an important element of building trust with each other. So again, I say to you, if you spend 4 meetings on getting to know each other, so you do that. If you need to spend more, you do more. But what's important is that you're always planning to build that consistency. And if you have the structures of, we're going to spend 2 minutes with a whip around, how was your day today? you know, that kind of sets the tone for, oh, okay, now that I've let out my frustrations, I can go on with the learning. So there are many ample opportunities for students to really feel safe and wanted in these type of learning opportunities. The key is having teachers realize how critical it is to plan together and not stop planning, because every time you meet, you learn and you start realizing what you're going to do next time. And no matter how minor a little lesson is, you're going to take notes and say, next time I'm going to do this with this group, and next time I'm not gonna. So you really are learning as you go, but you're also building each student's portfolio. So one of the critical pieces when you have cross-age tutoring is to develop a journal, or to develop some sort of writing folder that the big buddy and the little buddy share. And that becomes your chronicle of what takes place. So you reflect with the big buddies and plan the next session. So that's why I say it's really intensive up front in terms of planning, but it gives you so much. I mean, I've pulled kids from recess, from lunch, and they want to come. Teachers, you know, realize once it gets going how effective this can be. And so standards-based, you know, use your sentence frames with comprehension skills, such as cause and effect. Standards-based, you use main idea and details. So you, as a teacher, you can infuse what you already know through these mini lessons. And in our schools, we teach these comprehension skills pre-K. Pre-K, it's not, so they come into kindergarten, first grade knowing how to do a Venn diagram. So it's not that they don't have a sense, you're going to build on that. So one of the most critical pieces is knowing who you're working with, and as a teacher, you have to build opportunities for those two classes to get to know each other. So in some aspect, if you can just do half a class, do half a class. So as a literacy coach, I would take half of a teacher's class students away so she could stay with that half and do intervention with them. So I took those 10 and somebody else's 10 and went to 2 other classrooms and did cross-peer buddy reading, just read alouds and interactive journals. So it really depends on how your structures look. So in the handouts, you'll see a schedule for what we call, I can't think of it right now. Well, it's our reading plan, our literacy reading plan, which is a consistent, you know, 15 to 20 minutes every day. And so we already have that structure in place. So we just took one of those days and said that day is going to be our cross-age day. So we already had the time allotted in the curricular day to say, since we value reading and we already do this every day, we're going to take one day a week or twice a month, and we're going to do cross-peer tutoring. And basically, we don't label it as tutoring. We call it buddy reading. We call it, you know, time to go spend some, you know, fun time with your buddies, because you do draw. There's always an illustrative piece to this. So you have children using some sort of piece that demonstrate what they can do with a pen or a pencil or a crayon, or we don't paint. But so there is some interface with what you have here and what you're able to do on paper. And so the students that are not as able to write have somebody to help them with that writing or interpret their drawings. No matter how young, no matter how old, that's always a very strong piece. So as they get older, we have cooperative groups that have a facilitator, a recorder, a reporter, and we rotate those roles. So you're not always going to be the reporter or the recorder. But when it is your turn to be the recorder, and if you have some challenges, you will have somebody that could help build that support through sentence frames. So there are many little pieces that teachers put in that help support, but again, this happens through the planning piece. So I don't want to go on because I think it's a question and answer also, is that correct? Yes, okay. So at this point, I just wanted to set the groundwork for how this has played out for me. And at first, I just had many wonderful teachers that just told me this is what we do, and I did it. And I got better at it as I continued teaching. But the most wonderful piece about doing this is seeing the interactions between the students, and especially in building their journals. Their journals are just so valuable to them. And so we take pictures and we, decorate our boards with, this is our buddy reader, and, it goes across the grades. So we've had some buddy readers from 3rd through 5th grade leave us saying, I'm going to miss my buddy. So it's a really powerful experience. And like I said, even if it's once a month, it means something to them. And so I really value how important it is to start small. So even if it's just 2 classes, get the ball rolling and try to figure out how to make it happen. Because though it may not seem valuable, I think in the long run you'll see some real positive gains with competence, self-confidence, and the student's ability to apply a lot of the learning out of context, because they're always in this context of directed instruction. In this opportunity, they're both engaged.